The coffee was cold, the sun too warm for late September, and the usual buzz of Washington Square Park felt like a symphony of organized chaos. Kids laughing, saxophones howling, dogs chasing each other under benches. And in the middle of it all sat Imani Carter, elbows on a chipped cement chess table, paper cup balanced on her knee, and a quiet fire in her eyes. She watched the board like it was a battlefield. Across from her, a wiry old man in a Yankees cap moved his bishop with a grunt, muttering something about the youth not respecting tempo. Imani said nothing, just smiled slightly and nudged her knight forward with practiced precision. He looked up, paused. "You trap me again, girl?" he asked. She tilted her head. "Looks like it." His sigh was theatrical. "That's 3 in a row. I'm done. My ego can't take another bruise." Imani chuckled, brushing a strand of braids behind her ear. "You're not done, Mr. Leon. You're just scared of losing in front of the musicians." "Don't flatter yourself," he grumbled, already packing his pieces. But there was a glint of respect in his tired eyes. She leaned back, stretching sore shoulders. She'd spent 7 hours on her feet this morning, pulling espresso shots for tourists who barely said thank you. Her apron still smelled like steamed milk and vanilla syrup. But here, in the park, at the chess tables, she could breathe. She could be. As she reached for her coffee, another shadow fell over the board. "Mind if I sit?" asked a voice, smooth but unfamiliar. She looked up. A white man, mid to late 40s, no tie, but everything else about him screamed wealth. The sharp navy blazer, the Italian leather shoes, too clean for this part of town, the effortless arrogance of someone who hadn't taken the subway in a decade. His hair was peppered at the temples, his posture relaxed. But his eyes? Piercing, watchful. Imani raised an eyebrow. "You play?" He smiled. "Used to, a lifetime ago." "You want a bet?" "Only my pride. And I should warn you, it's fragile." She laughed despite herself. "All right, no bets, no clocks, just pieces." He slid into the seat, moved a pawn. "Greg." "Imani." The game began slowly, casual, almost conversational. But she noticed how his fingers lingered just a half-second longer on each move, how he traced the board without really seeming to, how his jaw tightened each time she took a piece without hesitation. Crowds began to gather by the 4th exchange. By the 7th, phones were out, filming, whispering. "Who's the girl?" someone asked. "Imani Carter," an old-timer said proudly. "Used to be a prodigy. Bronx kid. Almost made nationals before life knocked her down." Greg's eyes flickered up at that. "Did you?" he asked between moves. "Almost," she said without looking up. "Almost doesn't pay rent, though." He nodded once, quietly. By the 11th move, he looked less amused and more focused. Sweat beaded at his temple, though the breeze had picked up. She smirked, leaning in. "You all right, suit? I thought you said you used to play." "I did," he said, sliding his queen. "Just never against someone this good." And then she saw it, the opportunity. Knight to e6, fork, his king cornered, his bishop dead in 2 turns. He didn't see it until it was already too late. Checkmate. She leaned back, resting her hand gently on the table. That was fun. Greg stared at the board for a full 10 seconds, then another 5, and then laughter. Not polite laughter. Real. Genuine. He looked up at her like he'd just remembered something important. "I haven't lost like that in 20 years," he said. "Hell, I haven't played like that in 20 years." "You're rusty," she said. "I'm not." He extended a hand. Gregory Harlan. Her fingers paused mid-shake. She recognized the name. Harlan Ventures, Midtown Skyscraper, Wall Street Shark. Billionaire by 35. One of those Forbes cover men you only heard about when a startup exploded or a senator got a mysterious campaign donation. But she didn't show it. She just shook his hand. Imani Carter. He smiled. Pleasure. Then he stood. No business card. No dramatic declaration. He just left. Like she hadn't just taken down a man whose company could probably buy the entire park and still have cash for lunch. She sat there for a long while, the board still set in checkmate, listening to the wind shuffle the leaves above. The next day, her cafe shift was uneventful. Same burnt caramel drizzle, same customers with phones glued to their faces, same sore feet, until a sleek black sedan pulled up outside. A man in a tailored gray suit stepped out. He didn't come in. He just waited. Quiet. Calm. When she stepped outside on break, he tipped his head. "Miss Carter," he said. "Mr. Harlan requests your presence at Midtown Plaza. He's waiting on the 48th floor." She blinked. What?" He handed her a card, just an address, nothing more. "You'll want to come," he said. "It's not about the game." Not just that. Then he opened the door. She hesitated, then got in. The elevator in Midtown Plaza didn't hum. It whispered. 48 stories of polished steel, reflected glass, and silence you could slice with a bishop's edge. Imani Carter stood in the center, her palms damp, her fingers twitching like they were searching for invisible rooks. She wasn't dressed for this world. Faded jeans, a simple black jacket, and the nervousness of someone who still calculated coffee tips in quarters. But something in her eyes had changed since the park. She had won, and someone important had noticed. The doors opened to a hallway that smelled like eucalyptus and power. The assistant from earlier was already waiting. This way. No knock, no warning. The glass doors opened into an office that felt like a penthouse library. Warm wood, sharp architecture, and a wall of windows pouring Manhattan sunlight over a desk that could have doubled as a runway. Gregory Harlan stood at its edge. No jacket now, sleeves rolled, a decanter of water untouched by his hand. Behind him, the skyline of a city Imani once believed might crush her. Imani, he said like it wasn't her first name, but a memory he'd been trying to place all night. She stopped a few feet from the desk. "This doesn't feel like a rematch." He gave a small smile. "It's not." A moment of silence passed, thick but not uncomfortable. "I looked you up," he said finally. "Your name was familiar." Then I remembered why. He reached into a drawer and placed a thin manila folder on the desk. A newspaper clipping slid out. Bronx Teen Wins Regional Chess Championship, dated 2005. The photo showed a younger, smiling Imani holding a second-hand trophy, her braids tied in a high ponytail, her eyes bright with a future no one had yet stolen. Imani didn't move. Greg continued. "You were on track to be one of the youngest female grandmasters in the country. Then you disappeared." She said nothing. He met her gaze. What happened? She took a long breath. Her voice, when it came, was steady, tired but steady. My dad was a cab driver, killed by a drunk driver 3 months after that article. Mom had a stroke the year after, no health insurance. I was 17. I dropped out of Columbia's summer chess program. No one called. The scholarship vanished. You stopped playing? No, I kept playing, just not in places you'd read about. She crossed her arms. Subway platforms, parks, coffee tables. Greg's fingers tapped the desk once. The system failed you. No, she corrected. It ignored me. Big difference. Another pause. This one more fragile. Greg opened a drawer and placed something else on the table. A photograph, faded but familiar. It showed two kids sitting cross-legged on a chess mat at a summer festival in Harlem. Imani was unmistakable, 10 years old, wide-eyed, coaching a boy with sandy hair who looked scared to even touch the board. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. Greg didn't smile. He wasn't playing anymore. "That boy," he said softly, "was my nephew, Danny. He had leukemia, stage 4. Imani blinked. "What?" "He wouldn't talk to anyone, barely ate. My sister brought him to a festival one summer. I didn't even go. But when they got back, all he could talk about was a girl who taught him how to castle, who said losing wasn't scary if you learned from it. That girl gave him something no chemo ever could, a reason to fight." Imani's throat tightened. I don't remember." "You wouldn't. You were just being kind. To a kid. With a game." He looked out the window now, eyes distant. Danny passed 3 years later, but he played chess until the very end, carried that photo everywhere. The silence felt sacred. "I didn't bring you here for charity," Greg said finally, turning back. "I brought you here because you've already changed a life, and you almost didn't know." Imani looked down. Her voice cracked. "Why me?" Greg's answer came without hesitation. "Because you were forgotten. And now I want to make sure no kid like you ever is again." He slid a document across the desk. "Carter and Harlan Chess Academy," the heading read. "A partnership, full scholarship program, community-led curriculum, centered in the Bronx. Built by you." She stared at the paper like it was a hallucination. "I don't need you to be a figurehead," he said. "I need your brilliance, your resilience, your strategy. You beat me on that board. I want you to teach others how to win even bigger games." Imani shook her head slowly, disoriented. "I don't know how to run an academy." "You'll learn. Just like you taught yourself to win with second-hand pieces. We'll provide structure, staff. But the vision? That's you." Emotion threatened to break her. "I'm a barista," she whispered. "I can't even afford Wi-Fi right now." Greg leaned in. "Then it's time the world stopped treating you like you're small." He stood, extended his hand. "Say yes." Her fingers curled, unsure, but her heart, it had already moved its queen. That night, she walked back through Washington Square. Same tables, same rusted benches, but as she passed the old men playing, a slow clap started, then another. Then someone shouted, "The Queen is back!" And for the first time in a decade, Imani Carter smiled without weight on her shoulders, not because she'd won, but because she was building something no one could ever take. The construction site buzzed with early morning noise, drills, steel beams, and the steady thump of progress. But standing at the edge of the foundation, with a hard hat perched awkwardly over her braids, Imani Carter didn't hear any of it. She was staring at a sign newly bolted to a fence. Carter and Harlan Chess Academy opening, Spring 2026. Where strategy begins, and no one is forgotten. Her name, her future, etched into steel, and the tears that came weren't loud. They were quiet, stubborn things, the kind that had waited over a decade to be allowed. Behind her, Gregory Harlan stood with a cup of coffee, black, 2 sugars, just like she liked it. "I wasn't sure if you'd come today," he said. She took the cup wordlessly, eyes still on the sign. "I almost didn't," she admitted. "Thought maybe it'd feel surreal." "Does it?" "It feels earned." Greg nodded. The media had already caught on. Someone had filmed her game in the park that day. Grainy footage of a confident black woman dismantling a Billionaire's opening. The video had gone viral. "Queen from the Bronx humbles Wall Street at chess table," read one headline. "From coffee shop to checkmate, the woman reshaping chess in NYC," read another. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Imani. Talk shows, interviews, education blogs. But she declined most of them. "I don't need to be a brand," she'd told Greg. "You already are," he replied. "You're just not for sale." The real work began quietly. Curriculum planning, outreach meetings, hiring local coaches, visiting schools in Harlem and the South Bronx, where kids lit up when she handed them brand new chess sets, sleek, magnetic, and theirs to keep. Imani didn't give them trophies. She gave them time. And for many of those children, it was the first time someone had believed they could think 3 moves ahead. One rainy Thursday, an envelope arrived at the Academy's temporary office. Inside was a worn notebook. No name, just scribbled notations and annotations in red ink. At the bottom of the last page, a letter. "Dear Ms. Carter, I don't know if you remember me, but I was one of the kids who saw you play in the park. My mom says I talk too much about chess now, but she also says I laugh more. Thank you for teaching me that it's okay to think before moving. Elijah, age 9. Imani held the notebook to her chest for a long time. When the Academy finally opened that spring, the ribbon-cutting ceremony was modest but full. Old players from the park showed up in suits. Students she used to teach math to in night classes sent flowers. Even her mother, wheelchair-bound now but smiling wide, whispered, "You did it, baby," as cameras flashed. Imani gave a short speech. No teleprompter, no PR handler, just her voice, steady and certain. "I've lost a lot of games," she began. "Some of them on boards, some of them in life. But what matters is this. We are all still playing. We are still moving. And now we've got a place to learn how." Applause followed, but she barely heard it. Her eyes had drifted to a girl in the second row. 10, maybe 11. Same look she used to wear, defiant and curious. The girl held a chess piece in her hand, fingers curled tight around a queen. Later that night, Imani returned to Washington Square Park alone. No fanfare, no film crew, just the board, her old table, the seat still scarred from years of weather. 3 kids were playing, laughing, getting the moves wrong. Joyfully, she approached quietly. "Need a 4th?" she asked. The kids looked up. One of them blinked, eyes going wide. "You're the lady from the internet." Imani smiled. "I'm just someone who likes the game." They shifted to make space. She sat, took out her own small set, wooden, worn, still perfectly balanced, and played. They didn't talk much. The moves did the speaking. Queens fell. Pawns sacrificed themselves, but one thing was clear. No one was holding back. Gregory stood in the distance. He didn't interrupt, just watched as the Academy's name came to life on a park bench under fading city lights. For the first time, he was the one learning, and as Imani laughed, full-bodied, unrestrained, the camera of someone's phone caught the moment. The next morning, it went viral again. She's not playing for a title. She's playing for all of us. Later that month, the city council passed a motion to fund 3 more centers like hers. One of the kids she coached placed 3rd in a state tournament. Another wrote an essay that earned a scholarship. And a journalist asked her point blank, "What does it feel like to finally win?" Imani just smiled. "I haven't won yet," she said, "but now I never stop playing."